Attorneys told me that from the time they've known Dhoruba, he was always saying that he was going to get out of prison. And I was going to do everything that I could to get him out. We were married in July of 1989 when he was still in prison. I said, you know, your next birthday, you're not going to be in here.
This attorney never wanted to find out who did this crime. What they wanted to do was put Mr. Bin Wahad in prison for the rest of his life.
So when I went to court and Elizabeth Fink stood up and argued in my behalf, I wanted to say to her, Liz, you know, you're whipping a dead horse because he's going to surrender in any second as soon as you sit down. But I didn't say it because Liz was wound up. She was ready to go.
This court ruled on a narrow basis, and it took all that other evidence and it put it in abeyance and never gave us a public forum and granted this writ, but now you must release this man from jail.
And then she says, well, you know, my client should address the court, and the judge says, no, Ms. Fink, could you sit down? Could I hear from the prosecution? And he got up and he did his song and dance, you know, the regular routine. And then the judge started mumbling, and you can see he had to mumble through this because it took a lot out of him to do this.
Yeah, I'm trying to repeat.
So he tried to get through it as quickly as possible.
Shout too much, Mr. Bloom.
And then he said,
the court at this time, pursuant to CPL Article 510, issues a securing order releasing defendant on his own recognizance.
And you don't know how I felt. You don't know how I felt. To give you an address from the political prisoners held captive in the dungeons of the United States. They do not want me to give you this address because they do not want our South African brothers to know that there are black political prisoners here in the United States. Brother, comrade Nelson Mandela, on behalf of my brothers in prison, on behalf of the Puerto Rican nationalistas, on behalf of the Native American political prisoners, and on behalf of the white American political prisoners, I say to you, brother, we love you and we will not give up the fight. 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 Amen, law! Amen, law! I seen Nelson Mandela walk out of prison, and I wanted to whisper in his ear that I knew down in the bottom of my soul how he must feel. He is a symbol of the triumph of the human spirit over tyranny. The human spirit is the essence of all just laws. And when the spirit and the heart is corrupt, then the laws and the implementation become corrupt. And the only way we can change the society and the laws that constrain us today and that oppress other people because of their sexual orientation or the color of their skin or the fact that they're male or the fact that they're female or the fact that they're Latino or the fact that they're homeless or the fact that they have no money, the only way we can change that is we have to take a position.
Dhoruba Bin Wahad, you served 19 years for attempted murder of 2 policemen, a judgment that was overturned more recently on the basis of an unfair trial and the withholding of information. Let me ask you, Dhoruba Bin Wahad, how you feel what jumped out at you on that piece?
When we look at these young men, on the screen here, one of the young brothers said, you know, what do you know how to do? He said, rob, steal, and kill. What did Columbus know how to do when he came here? Rob the native people of their land, kill them, and exploit them. What did they know how to do? What is in the best tradition of capitalism in this society? burning, loot, rape, and pillage. This is something that is as integral to the United States as breathing. And the problem with race in this country is that white people in this country do not want to confront their own history and live up to the consequences of that history. And when you don't confront the truth will ultimately destroy you.
We're going to open the floor now for questions from the co-chairs, Dhoruba Bin Wahad and Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney.
One could argue that the name of the group, the Coalition to Combat Police Terrorism, is a challenging name, perhaps a slightly incendiary name.
Oh, let me answer that.
And let me finish my question. And there's been criticism that anger in the community fueled the killing of the 2 police officers in New York. Do you have a responsibility to exercise restraint in terms of that kind of rhetoric?
No. Let me be very clear. That's why we share a coalition here, you see. I'm going to say what's true, whether you like it or not, or whether you think it's combative or not. First of all, the United States uses war terms in almost every policy that it implements, domestic and foreign. What's the war on terror? What's the war on drugs? What's the war on crime? What's the war on poverty? War is a slightly belligerent term. Wouldn't you agree? So, the use of terms, to combat means that, to combat. We're not here to determine other people's political agenda. We're not here to tell other people how to think. We don't represent the politics of the Gardner family. We don't represent the politics of the Brown family. They're in grief. They lost their child. It launched a movement. They are not our political leaders. This coalition says what it is, to combat police terrorism. Because the police are terrorizing us and have been terrorizing us for what, about 400 years now? They're the descendants of the Patty Rollers. Remember them from New York? They're the descendants of the Ku Klux Klan. They're the descendants of the militias that used to go hunt slaves and run them down. That's what the police, that's how they police our community. Huh? If you think that that history is not worthy of the term combat, then you need to be 12 years a slave. So yes, we don't have no obligation to tone down our rhetoric. Who do we have an obligation to? CNN? To you? To white folks? Do we have an obligation in this society as the victims of white supremacy in this country to reform white supremacy? Do we have an obligation to make you feel better about yourself and better about your country? No. The coalition is to combat police terrorism.
First of all, I want to say, President, the Community Review Board process is a sham. It's always been a sham. It was created by the police department and specifically by the police union to divert the African American community away from true empowerment and control over the police. In 1968, the Black Panther Party organized national committees to combat fascism across the United States. It was a coalition with organizations and groups across the country. Now we know in 1968 there were riots, every rebellions every summer, right? There were rebellions across the country. These rebellions is what led to the creation of what we call today the militarized police, the SWAT team. We have to understand first and foremost, when we talk about policing the police and controlling the police, their job is to brutalize. That's their job. Their job is to control. That's their job. And they have a union to protect them. And that union has more political clout than everybody in this room and everybody on the police review board. The review board has always been a mechanism to divert the rage and organization of black people away from controlling the command and control structure of the police. So, having said that, we need to understand, if we talk about the community review board, we might as well leave the room. Because you're not going to have no power. You're not going to have no influence. Look who points the board. Me. Okay? The only way the police is going to respect you in your community is that they live in your community. If you have a residency clause in your community. That's right. The only way the police is going to control, or you're going to be able to control the police, is to decentralize the police. Is to take control of their command and control structure politically, so that they're accountable to you. You don't need a goddamn police chief in Atlanta. What you need is policing community district, where people in the community elect their district members to determine how public safety is administered in our community. Police need at least a 2 or 3 year probation residency clause in our community. You can believe if a cop lives on your block, he's not going to brutalize your son if you be accountable about it. Don't go for this crap about community review boards. They're co-optation. And I got the documentation to show it. The police union in New York, when we put the idea of community control, decentralization of police, decentralization of public safety, it wasn't just police. It was emergency service. It was the fire department. It was those agencies that relate to your public safety and your security. When we put this on a ballot, we put it on a referendum in New York City. The FBI put out a memorandum. I didn't bring the memo with us, but I just wanted in there. The FBI put out a memorandum and said, if this referendum goes through, it's the end of our control over the police. We can't let it go through. And so what the police unions did then is what they do now. They protect the interests of white supremacy and institutional policing in America. We have to understand the history of policing in America. That's not recited. Every rebellion in the 1960s and 70s was a result of police murder and brutality of black people. Right. So it's not the new that they organized a police review board after they killed a grandmother in a house. The community was outraged. The community wanted results. What's the best way to get the result? Get the Negroes over here, up in Atlanta, sit them down together and say, boss, how do we control these niggas? Well, let's give them a review board. Let's say we can bring these cops to accountability. How do we do that? Well, I'll appoint 3, you'll appoint 3, the mayor will appoint 2, and the union, they just ran in the background and keep the Willie Bolos because let us know when to do what. What happened to the cops that killed them at that boy in Ferguson? Who stopped them that investigation? Who held up his identity? The police union. The police union. The police union has a Bill of Rights. Hey, the Bill of Rights isn't sufficient for the police, the armed agents of the state. So they have their own Bill of Rights. And their own Bill of Rights says that when they murder your ass, they don't have to answer questions for 72 hours. When they do something to you, they have the protection. It's the union that brings you. Don't go for this crap about reviewing these crackers. Take control of this institution.
I'm telling you, my heart just leaps for joy. I'm telling. But Dhoruba, I go back 32 years. He's my brother, my comrade, my homeboy. I learned from him. When he calls, I come running. Even if I disagree, I'm hugging him because I know he loves the people. And I know he's speaking from the most profound motivation of empowering our people.